Hello YouTube. Nearly 2,000 subscribers over this 20-year-old 250,000 mile crapper. I don't know, we'll just call it that. We're going to talk about the engine today, and I'm going to try getting this in one take. I'm going to go over the whole build and let you guys realize how cheap you can do this. Like, it's really not that expensive, especially when it comes down to, you know, a fully forged motor. Most people put, you know, $10,000, $20,000 in an engine. Well, you don't need to do that. I'm going to be using this cheat sheet because I want to make sure I get all these numbers right, and I didn't memorize all of this, so sorry about that. This is a M52 B28 out of an E36. It's a single Vanos engine converted to dual Vanos. I have videos over that. It cost $350 running, but once I tore into it, I realized the cylinder walls were in pretty bad shape, so I went ahead and decided to buy pistons. So if you're gonna buy pistons, you might as well do rods, and got a little carried away, and now we're here. So the bore, 0.5 over bore, and the decking and balancing cost $700. That was all machine shop. That's not that bad. I'm sure you have a buddy that'll do it cheaper, but I don't, so I thought that was pretty good. And then I did stock rod bearings. We'll just start in the bottom end and go up. I did stock rod bearings. They're like 50 bucks. As you probably watched in a previous video, I did them again, and they're 50 bucks. And then I kept the B28 crankshaft. It's forged just like the B30. I just preferred it in this build, so that was free or part of the cost of the engine. And then for the crankshaft sprocket, it hurts. I know they're expensive. They're 100 bucks, but you want to do them because those teeth wear on them, and when you're dealing with that oil pump chain and stuff and you're doing a new chain, you just want everything to be new. You don't want any slack or very minimum slack in your oil pump. So that's 100 bucks. We're going to count that in there. I'm just going to count everything in this engine that I purchased, obviously. And then rebuilt the oil pump. I went with a stock oil pump. I rebuilt it, and then I did a new chain on it, and I did the tensioner mod, which is very cheap. So about $200 in the oil pump, and it's good for quite a bit because I tack welded the oil pump nut. I didn't go super fancy there. And for rods, this is gonna make people cringe, but they're pretty good. I have max beating rods. They're forged H-beam rods, and they're probably coming from the same place as Eagles and all of that. And I had them checked by 2 shops, big end, small end, weight, everything, and they were all in spec. They're great. I'd buy them, throw them in a motor, and run them without checking them at this point. And I've had no issues with them, and you don't really hear failures with them. So those were $500. Not too bad. That's about the same price as Eagles because they're all the same. But they came with ARP rod bolts, which have been confirmed to be true ARP bolts. So you're getting ARP rod bolts with them, so you can't really beat that price. And for pistons, I went super overboard, but it's kind of nice because I don't have to really worry about them. I went with Sandor pistons or diamond pistons, 9.5-to-1 compression with the heavy duty wrist pins and total source high tension rings. And they're $1,500, but they're rated for 300 a hole, 300 horsepower a hole. So I never really have to worry about them. That was $1,500. And then ARP head studs, those are about 200 bucks shipped, pretty cheap, ARP 2000s. For the head gasket, I went with an 87 millimeter Athena cut ring head gasket. That cost me $300, which really isn't that bad considering you can't even get them anymore. They're out of stock right now. I'm sure they'll be available again. But I got the 87 millimeter cut rings in the head gasket because if you go too small, there's actually an issue where they can get into the combustion chamber, and yeah, we didn't want to deal with any of that. So for cams, valves, and springs, cams I did ZHP cams because they're like a decent price compared to if I stayed single Vanos and went to S52. They're 250 bucks. Well, that's what you should be paying for them. People have them listed for like 400, so I just went with 250 on that. And then for valves, they're just stock, and for springs, they're stock with new valve seals. So I kind of went cheap up here because I was actually not planning on spending this much money to begin with, and it's good for this power. Like, there's no issue unless you're revving to the moon. Timing chains new, guides new, gasket seals, Vanos rebuild, all of that. I just kind of came up with a number, $450, rough estimate. I'm sure it's not exact, but about $450 for all that. That's counting front seal, rear main seal, all that stuff. And then the valve cover, $300. That's about what they go for. And I kind of put in there, you know, because I put 300 because it's modified, and I showed that in the last video and stuff like that. And then there's an extra $100 added here from the E39 pickup tube and windage tray. You got to run those to use the E46 oil pan. And the total cost, $5,000. And that's not that bad if you're wanting 800 plus horsepower and not having to worry about it. So I just figured to make a video over this. All this other stuff, I mean, I could do a video of how expensive the whole car was, but that's gonna take some adding up, and it's probably gonna be a pretty sad video in the end. But this one kind of makes me happy because $5 grand wasn't really that bad, and I'm just showing you guys that anyone can do it. I can share, I'll put this list in the description of what I did. I'll put some videos, well, some pictures, probably won't have any videos, some pictures of the process of when I built it throughout the video, because I wasn't making YouTube videos then when I built this engine. So, alright, thank you everyone for watching my videos. I'm really surprised you guys are still watching them, but I'm going to keep uploading if you keep watching. Forged H-beam rods and